Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I loved films like Back to the Future and Raiders of the Lost Ark. They were fun and exciting, except for the parts that showed nameless Arab characters as terrorists or criminals. At those parts, I would get a sick feeling in my gut. And then the scene would pass and I'd continue enjoying the movie. This happened again and again over the years. I grew accustomed to this lifetime of misrepresentation. But we all know how dangerous this misrepresentation has been. In his documentary, Real Bad Arabs: How Hollywood Vilifies a People, Jack Shaheen reveals that out of 1,000 films that have Arab and Muslim characters from the year 1896 to 2000, 12 were positive depictions, 52 were neutral portrayals of Arabs, and 936 were negative. That's 936 of 1,000 films. In response to this misrepresentation, Badi' and Hamza Ali founded Watermelon Pictures, a film production and distribution company. Their mission is to shift culture on a large scale by bringing Palestinian cinema and other untold stories to broad audiences in a way that entertains, inspires, and activates audiences. Their motto: from the river to the screen, Palestine will be seen. This episode was recorded on the 21st of April, 2025. I'm your host, Afaf Shawabibi, and you're listening to Tarwida. Badi' and Hamza, welcome to Tarwida. It's good to have you with us.
Afaf, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us. And we're very proud of all the work you've been doing at Tarwida.
We actually feel that our missions are very much aligned, given the environment that we're dealing with. And that's why we're having you on here, because we think it's so important that people hear your story, your very interesting background story, and the work that you're doing. So let's start from the beginning. Your story actually begins way back when your grandparents left Palestine to go to the U.S. In 1935. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my grandfather, Badi', who I'm actually named after, came on a boat in 1935 to Ellis Island. This is obviously during the time of the British Mandate and whatnot. And when he came to the States, he went to Chicago, out of all places, and started his own businesses. And then fast forward a little bit to where he opened up a successful men's clothing store and some other businesses. In 1952, my father was born in America and lived here for 8 years. And then moved back in 1960 when my grandfather thought that my dad needed to learn the language, learn the culture and whatnot. And then my dad went back to Palestine, a village called Batunia, where he went for 8 years till he was 16. And he said those were probably among the most beloved years. He learned Arabic, he learned culture, got to live a different life, see a different life. He always jokes to us, the first time he asked his father when he was in Batunia, "Baba, where's the bathroom?" And he told me, "Go outside, it's the building on your left." So it was a kind of a different world, if you will. With that being said, he lived there with my uncle Walid, who was kind of the visionary behind our business, was obsessed with film, specifically James Bond. He actually thought he was James Bond. And he was lucky when he was in school. He got a minor in film, but his major was business administration. But he got his local school to pay for him to film an action film. And he actually got the school to rent a helicopter to do a chase scene.
Oh, wow.
And this is in the the late 60s, early 70s. Nonetheless, they loved film and they started getting into it, and they started distributing film reels. So they'd rent film reels from the studios and they'd rent it to nursing homes, to schools and whatnot, essentially getting the rights for a film for, let's say, $400 for a month. And then they would rent it 6 or 7 times a month for $300 a pop. And then fast forward, they actually were among the first people to ever distribute Betamax, Betamax before VHS.
Yeah.
and then it went to VHS. So they actually went to people who had rights to television programming and asked them if they wanted us to represent and distribute these properties on VHS cassette. So we made deals with the Gleason estate, so Jackie Gleason, The Honeymooners, Dark Shadows, Beverly Hillbillies, some of these classic American television programs on VHS. So we became a distribution company. It was interesting because they had a chance to either open up a video store or go into distribution, and they chose to go into distribution. And our distribution started with VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. Now we're a global distribution company doing distribution in kind of all different mediums, whether it's theatrical, television, digital, you name it, foreign licensing.
And just to clarify for our audiences, now we're talking about MPI, which is Media Pictures International, right?
Yes. So MPI Media Group is the main company, right? And we have different labels under it. MPI Home Video is what I pretty much described. And then we started a horror genre label in 2008 called Dark Sky Films. And then we acquired the MPI Stock Footage Archive in, I believe it was 1989. Yep. And then we launched this past year, Hamza and I, Watermelon Pictures.
So just to back up a sec, because I think it's really interesting that you inherited this business. You grew up loving films. You grew up as film buffs. Tell us a bit about how you played with film, like what your memories are in that.
Yeah, I'll let Hamza go second because I started before him. I'm older. But real quick, I remember when we released Honeymooners, this is an example of what I spent a whole summer doing. We had this VHS edition of the entire Honeymooners box set where it was like we had to build it into a school bus. So it was literally a whole summer of building VHS boxes, packaging them, putting them in these boxes to be shipped, sending individual mailers out, stuff like that. So we grew up starting. That's pretty much where I started. Hamza, I know, has a very fascinating story of kind of some of the stuff he started with.
Yeah, no, I remember being around the office as a young boy. And actually, we still have some of the same employees from when we launched. They're still here, part of the accounting team and whatnot. And I was 5 or 6 years old, running around the office. I would Xerox my hand and try to sell copies to the other employees. They'd give me quarters or $1, chase me around. And, a lot of the female employees we had would chase me around and try to kiss me because they knew I hated kisses. So a lot of fond memories growing up in the industry, and just a fan of film and movies in general.
What were some of your favorite films growing up?
Oh, I mean, just we have a lot of great memories of just heading to Blockbuster and make it a Blockbuster night. Just trying to find a film. It's not like today where you can just rent it. Obviously, you have to find it in stock, and but we've always been immersed in the industry to some extent.
I remember one thing I wanted Hamza to bring up is what he spent one of his first summers doing with DVD is he had to do check discs. So he had to watch the Dark Shadows series, which is a soap opera that went for many, many years. And I remember he had to watch them all and check the buttons. And then it was a very manual process, but he spent, I think, an entire summer doing that. And I remember he was losing his mind watching the series.
I can imagine.
It's 1,200 episodes. So
yeah. So Watermelon Pictures was created as a label under the bigger distribution company. And I want to talk to you, obviously, about the launching of Watermelon. But first, I want to mention that one of the first reels that you put out was how we as Arabs have been majorly misrepresented in media and in Hollywood in particular. And seeing that video really hit home for me because, for a big chunk of our lives, we saw these. I mean, I just heard Munir Atalla's interview on Kalam podcast where he talks about of 1,000 films that show Arabs and, Muslims, maybe 930 something depict them in a negative way, and that's a huge number. But seeing these major films, and I don't know about you, but there was this internalization of these images where on the one hand you know that that's not the reality, but on the other hand it's but it's it's in the movies, this is how we're being portrayed, so clearly there's some truth to it. I don't know. Were you always aware of this misrepresentation, or was there a point where you just snapped out of it and woke up to it?
Yeah, no, I think we knew it was always there. I just think we didn't know how much it affects things until more recently, I'd say. I think this recent genocide that's been going on really woke us up. Before that, though, I could say Hamza and I were in discussions that we need to start a new label. We were actually in the works of starting a new label that was more representative of who we are. And it was more just from a concept of not that how this misrepresentation is hurting us, but more rather that we need stuff that kind of reflect our values. We felt a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is not commensurate with who we are as a people. But then when we saw what's going on, I think for me, at least, it just all clicked. There's been a very deliberate approach to bringing us down. And it's been for so long. And when this whole thing in Gaza started, we knew the media was biased always. We always knew like CNN, Fox, the normal news. But Hollywood wasn't as blatant. But when you start thinking about it, it was like, oh no, there's a very conscientious effort of bringing us down. Some of the statistics that like come out, I think there's out of the most popular Hollywood films, 91% don't even feature a Muslim character. Muslims are 2 billion people in the world. 54% of Muslim characters were targets of violence. 39% of Muslim characters are depicted as perpetrators of violence. 19% of Muslim characters die by the end of the film. So when you start looking at the statistics, it's very obvious. And then what I think the connection that was made is how these specific things lead to what's happening. When you see what's happening in Gaza, that, oh, we're just numbers. There's no empathy. There's no kind of no connection because they don't look at us as human. They look at us almost as subhuman.
Right. And so what point did you say, okay, we want to launch a label specifically to promote or reclaim the narrative about Palestinians?
Yeah, I think for me, the first thing you feel is survivor's guilt. And we're all seeing these images on our phones and asking ourselves, what can we do? And my brother and I, we're in a position where we do have a platform. And for me, it was not only just obviously the genocide and everything that was happening, but in the United States, the ensuing debate that occurred after that as to whether or not it's justified. And how could this debate even occur? And it's similar to what my brother said. It's dehumanization that allows this debate to go on. So very early on, after things were happening, we talked about we need to combat this dehumanization. And it might not happen overnight, but we're at least going to do our part and lay the groundwork for future generations. So when we started, it was really more out of, pure philanthropy and like supporting Palestinian or Arab filmmakers and seeing what films are out there that are not being properly distributed, because we know in the industry there isn't going to be a level of support. And really, if it wasn't us, there would be nobody else to kind of take this on. And we still see this, like with all of these great films. It's unfortunate that we're kind of like the only stop, and we really hope that changes. We actually welcome that there would be competition one day. But so again, for me, it was like, unfortunately, watching the news, watching Piers Morgan debate on, if this is justified, and again, dehumanization, and it's through cultural erasure, but also through demonization and villainizing our community. As you said, like, we're often depicted as the villains or the terrorists or whatnot, and not only that, really. Not just the villain, which sometimes it's okay to be the villain, but we're often portrayed as a very incompetent villain that you have no sympathy with. So that's kind of the goal, is really to represent properly.
I think we realized, as Hamza said, we're the only Palestinian Muslim-led North American distribution company. So I think it came to a realization that if we don't do this, like, who's going to do it for us?
Yeah.
We need to take our own control. And I think that's one thing that I think when we empowered ourselves, that like it's us and our community has to step up. No one's going to do it for us. And I think it's the right it should be. I just think a lot of, there's no time to complain and say they don't represent us. We have to represent ourselves, and we have to be here. So that's what we're about.
Yeah. And Badia, you had mentioned that you were an activist in university. You were one of the founders of SJP at your university. How did that play a role in your wanting to do this?
So, being in America, we know that we're complicit, whether it's directly or indirectly. We know that our tax dollars are going to fund what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a responsibility to do something, So at the time when I was in college, the best opportunity was to be involved in a student activist group, and that was during the Second Intifada. Now, I guess we were trying a lot of different things. Like, we were involved in local political advocacy recently. We're involved in the local, our local mosque. We're involved in a lot of different things. But one thing we realized is other people who can kind of take some of those reins. But to do this, we're really the only people that can do this at this time. So I think everyone has a skill and everyone has their kind of unique talent they could bring to help the cause. And for us, it just was very blatant that this is what it is for us. But again, being in this, in this country, we have privilege. But at the same time, with that privilege comes a responsibility to make sure what's done is right. And, being Palestinian in the diaspora, I think this is what it's all about, is us, wherever we spread, we have to spread goodness. And I think that's the only way we're going to see change in the world.
If I had to just focus in on your ultimate goal, I mean, you talk about reclaiming the narrative, you talk about the dehumanization, but what does the ultimate goal look like for you?
Well, first of all, we definitely want to support the creative community because they've been operating under such difficult circumstances, very limited budgets, not able to find distribution, which in effect really reduces the ability to turn out great films. So, that's one. We want to demonstrate that these films are successful and can be successful. And I think we're doing that. Independent film is a tough market right now in general, but we've been lucky enough to have a string of successes, and the cinemas are already supportive of us, and they realize that we're able to activate an audience that has been undertapped and underserved. So that's one, is to ensure that films are getting proper representation and filmmakers have the flexibility and the budgets to create higher level content. The other long-term goal is really to reach the mainstream and show that we're more than our suffering, right? This is something that we're being defined as, and I think it's something that we need to get beyond. Palestinians are extremely creative, hospitable, generous, warm, loving people, and the more people are susceptible to our culture, the less mystified and the less villainized we can be in their eyes. So the idea is really to make Palestinians mainstream. That's how we humanize. Actually, one thing we say here is Palestinians love to feed people. So, come to our table and we will feed you. We're going to feed you stories. Yeah. And we want to bring in, allied communities and really just show that we're all these struggles are really intertwined and interrelated.
So that's great, Hamza. I'm going to go a little bit further. And just to say, I think what's happening now is we're seeing a kind of a shift to like the global south, to a decolonized world. So I think what I would love to see is us grow as a studio, but also really look at a whole new kind of market, right? And focus content for where the majority of the people are. I think historically it was a challenge to reach some of these other audiences outside of, let's say, the West, because of, there was not a way to get the media to them. But with phones and technology, we have the ability to reach people in all parts of the world. So with that being said, I feel there's a huge appetite for different type of content, more authentic content for us and by us. And obviously, I think our goal is, as Hamza said, like hitting commercial properties and projects here, is that's how we feel we could make the most impact on changing our narrative, And again, once we change the narrative here, we hope that could change the position and how future politicians or might see us and look at us or look at the conflict. That could lead to not just a free Palestine, but a decolonized world, if you will. And then obviously the biggest goal for us always is to do this in a way that God's happy with us, and we did our part.
So yeah, when you and I spoke, Badia, we talked about the shift in media and storytelling and how the new generation now consumes media very differently from the old, we've seen the move from mainstream networks to social media. How is this affecting the films being made?
I mean, I could tell you just in the industry wide. So industry wide, we're seeing a huge, a lot of the studios are cutting their employees substantially. They're cutting their workforce. Films that used to cost X and the costs are only going up too. They can't warrant them as much because the new generation's consuming media in their time in such a different way. They have so much more competition, whether it's gaming has taken a different turn, or whether just these social media influencers. We talked about the example of Mr. Beast, who by himself is bigger than a studio.
Yeah.
One guy that's producing media, and look at his access and what impact he can make. So with that being said, we definitely see that things are hurting. People are not going to their traditional, video store than when we were kids to rent a movie. They know how to find what they want. And again, there's just so much competition for people's time that is a challenge. And we are seeing it across the board.
And even since you launched, the landscape has changed even further. I mean, now the environment is even more hostile. Has your strategies changed recently?
Not so much recently. I mean, we're very grassroots driven. Again, one thing we like to say is we're taking the movement to the movies. We are trying to get people in cinema. And there's no comparison with, watching a film either on your phone or even home alone versus with community. Something we're seeing that's really beautiful with the encampments is almost after every single screening, there's Free Palestine chants that are happening, and we're getting these videos like every day. It's something you can't experience, at home. So we do hope to get people in the cinemas, but yeah, of course, it's very challenging in the market in general. And yeah, we're constantly thinking about new things, AI, YouTube, all of this is part of our strategy going forward.
Yeah, and I actually do want to get into the encampments because it's it's very obviously relevant, needless to say. But I want to ask you first about like your criteria and choosing the films.
Yeah, I mean, that's been definitely, something that's not easy to navigate because there are so many submissions. There's a lot of scripts, there's a lot of, films, and I really wish we could support everyone, but unfortunately, it's impossible to do that. The bandwidth, the cost, etc. So when we're curating, we look at marketability and impact. So I think those are two things that we're considering, and actually they do go hand in hand because a film can say all the right things, but if it's not marketable, it's not going to have impact because the reach will not be there. So those are two things we're definitely focused on, but also the quality has to be there and the messaging also has to be right. Obviously, we're not a political organization, but we have our ideologies and we want our content to be, aligned as much as possible. So those are the things that we think about when we're curating content.
And one of the other things that's upcoming is we're soon to be launching our possible own platform, which would allow us to be a little bit more flexible with what we can provide people. It may not be there's certain titles that may not warrant a full release, but at least it will have a home.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by a platform?
Since we've launched, there's not a lot of places for our content to live, and there's no centralized hub for our content. We recently saw a lot of backlash on Netflix because there was a supposed purge of Palestinian content. Now we kind of have a little bit of insider knowledge that these things happen. They're titles that are expiring. Right. Netflix is not obligated to renew them.
Right, especially if, as I've heard, that people weren't viewing them as much as was hoped, and so ultimately, it was like a business choice.
It's very possible, and it's not atypical for a streaming platform to do a one-term license and then to move on. So, but to that point though, there is still concern when from our perspective that okay, what happens to these films now, right? Are they like now they're gone forever? So over the past 15 months or so, we've been behind the scenes curating as much Palestinian content as we possibly could. And we've one by one licensed films over the last several decades from all of the top directors and producers. And we're very excited that this platform will be launching in the next month.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, it's a place where our cinema can live and breathe. It's the most definitive archive for Palestinian cinema, to date.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely been a lot of work to curate as well. So
yeah, I can imagine. But I want to ask again about you brought up the marketability of the films you choose. So are we talking marketable to the mainstream U.S. audience? We're talking about the global South. We're talking about to Palestinians. What are we talking about?
Definitely, I think a lot of the trap that we've fallen into is that our content really is kind of speaking to our audience, or another way to say is preaching to the choir. It's amazing cinema, but we definitely need to think about how to reach a wider audience. And I think a really great example of that is Mo on Netflix. The first priority was making a funny show and just a high quality show. But in that there is very Palestinian messaging and also humanization and our culture on full display. So I think that's a perfect example of something that we need a lot more of.
Mm-hmm. How do you balance representing or promoting mainly Palestinian movies with the resistance or the not so welcoming environment that you're in? I mean, for example, you said that you had an interview with Variety. So how would you speak differently to them than you would to an audience like ours who is mainly Palestinian or pro-Palestinian?
I mean, we have to be very strategic and very tactful, right, in everything that we do. And again, the goal is always for impact. So when we're speaking to our community, I think, which we have a really good tone because we are from the community. We're Palestinians. We're born and raised in a lot of what we're seeing. So because of that, it's very easy for us to understand our community and how to speak to them. But in the distribution side, in the production side, and in the industry, we also know how to speak in a way where we understand some of the challenges that we're going into.
Yeah.
So obviously, when we're speaking to Variety, we know who the audience is. And speaking to who your audience is, I think it's always important. That's something as distributors that we always know. Sometimes when we speak with filmmakers, it's a great product. We're like, who is your audience? That's one of the first things we ask them. They're like, oh, this is mainstream. I'm like, is it mainstream? Is this going to resonate with the mainstream audience? Do you understand the commercial? So I think where we come in, Watermelon Pictures, is that, again, we've been a distributor in this business for 50 years. We understand the audience because of our longevity in the industry. So that's why I feel we kind of have a unique perspective. So us working with filmmakers and people who are coming up with these productions, we actually can consult quite a bit. And also, to be honest, that's why we're developing our own slate, because we feel that what we bring to the table in a slate could resonate. But because we know what works as a distributor, we have a huge advantage. But I think it's been a little challenging the past year getting kind of productions and pitches to the level where we feel it can be commercial.
Yeah.
So that's why we started developing our own.
I'd like to just ask you to highlight some of the films you're promoting. So the one I'd like to focus on actually is The Encampments because of its relevance. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so Encampments was produced by Breakthrough Media. So they were actually capturing content at Columbia during the Encampments. And essentially, Munir, who is our head of production, as you said, they basically told him, "Oh yeah, we're gonna put it on YouTube," and we were like, "No, like you got to film here, take it easy,"
Yeah,
So
yeah.
They're a really great team and did such a great job kind of compiling this narrative, and then we did a lot of consultation as far as on the distribution side, what will resonate. And here we are. The film was originally slated for a fall release in October, but with Mahmoud Khalil's abduction and other films that I don't want to name kind of portraying the opposite narrative, we really felt like we needed to show the other side of that. So the film actually was fast-tracked from October to March 28th. On a Monday, we decided to release the film that same Friday. And it was extremely ambitious, but we're very happy with kind of how things turned out.
We also brought in executive producer Macklemore to jump on and really amplify it. He amplified it in ways, outside of our audience, which really helped.
Yeah, yeah. And so you said that at the end of the screenings, the audiences chant "Free Palestine" and whatnot. So there's mobilization.
We actually had, we opened in New York. So it was a platform release before opening nationwide the following weekend. But that New York weekend opening was the highest grossing weekend for a documentary in a single theater ever, which is really just like a testament to the community and the power of getting out there. So an amazing turnout to the film. And we're very happy that it's also been a really diverse audience, which we're thrilled to see. It's not just our community that's kind of out there watching and supporting this film.
It's one of the only counter narratives to what's happening right now in, with the witch.
Sure. So you are distributing it in the US right now only?
We're in North America, and then we're actually opening in the UK on May 30th. So it'll open actually UK and Ireland on May 30th. And then we will be selling the film internationally at the Cannes Film Festival, which is also mid-May. And wherever we can't make a direct sale with a distributor, the film will be available on digital platforms internationally. So everybody that wants to see the film will be able to. We make sure of that for all our films. We don't always have international rights, but when we do, we make sure that the film is accessible to all audience members.
Yeah. So I was taking a look at the films you have listed on your website. I don't know if is that the full list? It's just a selection?
Yeah, that's a selection. Those are probably like titles that we did full release campaigns, and we've availed across all digital platforms. We've licensed over 60 or 70 films at this point that will all be on our streaming platform when we launch.
Oh, nice. Because I noticed that a big chunk of them are documentaries. There are three to four if you count from Ground Zero, which is kind of combination documentary and fiction. But there are other than that, there's about 3 fiction films, and it got me thinking that when it comes to this topic, people lean much more towards documentary, I suppose.
Yeah. We do have features that are coming as well. The Teacher is out now, and we actually think that narrative has just as much ability, if not more, to shift culture and to change narrative, because it's a little easier to digest. It has entertainment value. It's a little wider reaching. So, we really, The Teacher is an amazing, beautiful film, but at the same time, it depicts life in the West Bank, and it really hits on the idea, the concept of value of human life. And the Farah Nabulsi is an Academy Award nominated director. Saleh Bakri is one of the best actors of our time. I would argue not just Palestinian, but it's a beautiful, amazing film that, again, if you see it, it really kind of helps put things into perspective as far as like what happened.
Yeah, for sure. We had Farah on here, and it was before she still didn't have the opportunity for somebody to distribute, so it was still doing the festival circuit, and definitely we talked about how important film is as a medium to get people to really empathize and understand what is happening on the ground. And we're really looking forward to more films like that being made.
We have another feature coming called To a Land Unknown from director Mahdi Fleifel, and it's a beautiful film, and it's getting flawless reviews. And it's about, the film is not necessarily about Palestine, but it's 2 Palestinian refugees in Greece, and kind of what they were almost like forced to resort to because of their situation. But above that, it just succeeds as cinema. It's just a great film.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about normalization. So, we had recently a huge controversy with No Other Land, which isn't one of your films, but nevertheless, it's important to talk about because it really polarized people who thought that they were on the same side, Palestinians as well. Tell me your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think normalization is obviously something very important, and we always got to keep our, eyes and pulse on it. At the same time, something like No Other Land, I think it was a very strong film. It really told a story, right, that needed to be told. I think our community all understood it and get it, but it transcended our community for whatever reasons. And I think we need that film to be successful because there was more eyeballs that got on that film because it was, it won the Oscar. It was first nominated, then it won. It really helped push, the film. Some of the criticism I think was strong, but they have their criterion. But I think as a community, we always have to just ask ourselves, like, the word impact and what kind of effect is it having? Obviously, being Palestinian and a Palestinian distribution label, if things are under our care, we obviously know these sensitivities and know how to handle them. But I mean, there are a lot of titles that came our way that we had to pass on because of this.
Okay.
And Hamza could probably speak a little bit in more detail to that.
I think you can go one way or another here, and we'll be in trouble no matter what we say. but
you won't be in trouble with us. But you please speak as candidly as you can.
Yeah, I mean, you ask yourself, does the film do more harm than good? And I think people have different answers to that. I think some of the pushback is healthy and is warranted because, you wonder, would there have been that much success if it was like a full Palestinian team that was directing or whatnot? But to that point, overall, I do think that the film is politically very strong and sheds light on Masafer Yatta, right? Like that's, at the end, kind of raising awareness about what's happening there is, for me, a win. But I think it's okay for the community to kind of point out problem areas at the same time. Also, just to say, as distributors, obviously we're not a distributor on No Other Land, but our job is to tell the stories of those films that are out there. It doesn't mean we have to 100% agree with 100% of the content that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of being able to convey those stories and get them out to the world.
Mm-hmm. So when you were considering Israelism, were there any question marks in your head?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about it, and it was a very similar, and that was really early on. It was our second film. I would say that Israelism is not meant for a Palestinian audience. It's not meant for an Arab audience. The film is really meant for Jewish Americans. The amount of feedback we received from Jewish Americans saying, this film opened my eyes, and really it helps kind of deflate Zionism and detach people's Judaism from their Zionism. I believe that film had a lot of impact, and I'm proud that we were able to kind of get additional eyes on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When Farha came out in 2021, it had a big impact on the Palestinian community because, especially for those of the older generation who, basically it took them back to a point in time that was very painful. And for those of us who didn't experience the Nakba, we lived what we were imagining. But some people said, but it was too narrow. It was too narrow of a scope. Like it wasn't, ما فشلنا قلبنا الفيلم, like we wanted more. And of course, Dareen Salam did an amazing job. And that was the film that she wanted to do. But, there is a hunger, there is a yearning for a Nakba, an epic Nakba movie. When will we see that?
Oh, very soon, very soon. It's already done. It's already done. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's not a secret. Shireen Daibas, she made a film called All That's Left of You. It premiered at Sundance. I've watched it. It's epic and beautiful, and the community is gonna absolutely love the film. It shows the impact of the Nakba across multiple generations. And it's a remarkable film.
It should be the de facto Nakba film in the future, I believe. Yeah.
Well, interestingly, what happened with her production is also, part of the knock-on effects of the Nakba, because they had to, change locations, and then they ended up, filming in Greece and in Cyprus, and it just shows you the environment that filmmakers are dealing with and the challenges.
You're exactly right. I mean, Farah Nabulsi also had to deal with that. There was so many, and also Anne Marie Jassid has a film
Yeah.
that similarly like had to be basically shut down and then start up again. It's a testament to the resilience of Palestinian creatives.
Definitely.
Having to really like almost launch 2 productions to have one film made. And just to say on Anne Marie's film, that's a story that I don't believe has been told. This is the pre-Nakba epic, 1936 Palestine, the revolt against the British Mandate. We're very excited to be part of that film and to bring that film to the world as well.
Is it premature to talk about maybe a feature film about what's been happening?
There's quite a bit of films out there. There's a specific film that's out as well, or will be out soon, about Hind Rajab. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a very specific contained story. But I think we're going to see this. I mean, what's happening is unprecedented, right? And I think these stories are going to get out, and our job is to make sure that all of these stories are told, and that these aren't just numbers, right? There's so many stories. Each person, you can't imagine how many talks we've been in about how many different stories and how many different families. There's so much. I mean, I think this is going to be something for the next 20 years. We're going to be telling these stories.
And yet one kind of also hopes that, we can tell just stories. I mean, not just, stories about our suffering, but just everyday stories or relationships or whatnot.
No, and that's, I mean, sometimes for a North American audience, those are the ones that people will resonate more with them.
I think these stories need to be universal and appeal to everybody, but feature our community. So like something we've been talking about is how come there's no Palestinian or even Arab animated film? I mean, the last one we have is Aladdin, which was actually majorly offensive and cultural appropriation. But there needs to be a Palestinian Moana, a Palestinian Encanto. Also, sports films, comedies, romantic comedies, a superhero film. Like, why don't we have these things? So, it's going to take some time, but the goal is that, all of this is happening. We're laying the groundworks, and we want all of these things to happen within the next 5 to 10 years.
I was going to ask you now what you hope to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years. So you've answered the question, but
I mean, a Palestinian Moana as an example that we know, sadly that we know Disney will never give us, right? That film can have more impact than the most political film we can make, because it's bringing let's say a young Palestinian boy or girl into the hearts and minds of children across the world. And again, we need to have better access to budgets. And our community has been pigeonholed into thinking small, our creative community, because of a lack of accessibility. They don't have the budgets to work with. They don't have the funds.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to show that these films can be commercially viable at a high budget so that we can continue to produce them.
It's interesting when you talked about animation. I immediately remembered Lid, which is also one of the films you distribute, because the scenes that are in it, where the animation scenes that are in it, where they kind of have you seeing what Palestine could have looked like had all the events not happened, we still had Palestine. It was just really incredible. I mean, it was just, it was really powerful.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful documentary. We really love it. Rami Yunus is a great director, and it's a really great documentary that we hope people will take the time to watch.
Like, if we want to think beyond the 5 to 10 years, what's your ultimate dream? Like, if there's no restrictions.
I mean, I would love for us to grow into a major studio that serves our own version of Hollywood somewhere in the world. I would love that. That's where my mind is at. And I feel just in the past year, since, again, one of the biggest things Hamza and I have been focusing on is really networking and connecting with people. Yeah. And I think we both can say we've never felt more confident in our community globally. We have all the resources, we have all the talent, we have the financial means, we have everything we need. We just need to unite a little bit And if watermelon could be anything, I always say this, if it could be a unifying mechanism to bring these talents together, I think we're in good shape. The future seems very bright.
Something else I think we'd all love to see is our most talented members of our community being seen as such, having our directors, our version of Christopher Nolan, our version of Leonardo DiCaprio, and just having them really thrive and succeed in the industry, which has been, admittedly very difficult for them.
I believe we have them. They just need to be, as you said, they just need to be seen.
Exactly.
Yeah, they just need to be promoted. And just to go back to the idea of unity, I mean, I think even just listening to my parents' generation always talking about how that's our biggest problem, like lack of unity, lack of coming together. And I think we're seeing more mobilization now, people realizing that, together we can have so much more of an impact. And that's why we're very happy to have people like you on our podcast, because we just want to showcase how much talent we have, how many creatives or people in the creative industry, are doing such great things. So thank you both so much for your time. And we're really looking forward to seeing what surprises you have for us, including the platform and what other activities you are going to, start. So thanks Badia, thanks Hamza.
Thank you.
It's been great having you both.
Thanks for having us on.
It's truly our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Tarwida, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the best of Palestinian arts and culture. For more information, please follow us on social media and don't forget to subscribe. Salam.